Welcome, folks, to The Uncommon Good with Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr. Every week, diving deep into the truth of Catholic social teaching and restoring all things in Christ.
The Uncommon Good is on the air. I'm Bo Bonner.
Good morning, Des Moines! I always wanted to do that.
It is a good morning to do that because, it is a sleepy morning here in the
Robin
middle of
Williams
the country.
reference?
Yeah, 80s references.
I'm Bud Marr.
Those two in the back need to not act like they don't know what we're talking about. Fine, we'll make 70s movie references so you guys... Okay, any rate, good morning, Des Moines. On this nice... you know what, but it is truly deciding to be November. That's what I've been telling people.
No, I was worried in September because it was far too green for September. We got that kind of late-ish rain, and then things sort of greened up, and so my body was thrown off as I'm taking walks, in late September. I was like, what time of year is it? But then... once the leaves turned, I'm in all seriousness, I've been enjoying my drives to work because it's splendid.
It's been absolutely beautiful, and it's interesting about how all the amalgamation. Guys, we're going to talk about leaves this whole. No, we're not. This is the Uncommon Good, and we will make sure to talk about common good. Catholic social teaching. In fact, we have on the show today Andrew Willard Jones, the author of Before Church and State and the Two Cities, and it's going to be very much a common good Catholic social teaching sort of half hour. But in the banter beforehand, I gotta hand it to Bud. He's absolutely right. Go out and enjoy the leaves before they all fall off. It is weird that the trees are sort of doing this unevenly. Some of them, of course, have already shed everything, but many of them are a furiously beautiful red, orange, and yellow. It looks like a holy autumnal fire out there as you drive around.
As the kids say, life comes at you fast, and it's it's surprising. Baseball's over. Wait, the Cardinals earned 5 Gold Gloves.
Right.
It's like a record.
That's right.
So we've been joking with our good friend Justin White, who works for the diocese. That's more impressive than a world title.
He's an Atlanta fan. How many anything did Cubs win?
Oh, crickets.
It's very quiet. Okay. Anyway, well, what we want to say is that. This beautiful banter about leaves and baseball is brought to you by Mercy College of Health Sciences, whether they like it or not. No, I'm kidding. Where both Bud and I work, the director of the Center for Human Flourishing and the senior advisor for mission initiatives. Bud, tell people what you do at the old ball game.
Yeah, I'm the associate provost at the college. A lot of great things going on. We talked last week about the lecture that the Center for Human Flourishing hosted. But of course, if you've tuned in the news at all, great need for healthcare workers. And so the work that we're doing, we've always been very excited about, but right now, it feels very essential and important.
Yes, and so the Mercy College underwrites our show, mchs.edu. Go check out all the stuff going there. If you want to look at the Center for Human Flourishing, mchs.edu/flourish. I had the great honor, because we're searching for a new president, so they had me as the senior advisor for mission, join the bishops of Iowa and the presidents of the Catholic colleges of Iowa. And it was wonderful to get to talk and hear everybody, but getting the chance to talk about how we've had record enrollment because people are interested in answering the call to the vocation of healing in the middle of the pandemic. And I just want to thank our students because it was a wonderful opportunity to get to say that to everybody there gathered for Catholic education, that Mercy's been able to do that. So mchs.edu.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you're heading up that committee, so if anything goes wrong, I can blame you. No, I think I'm going to be participating as well, and we're excited to see what the future holds there.
So today, like we said, we have Andrew Willard Jones, and he had 2 books, one much longer than the other, but he made a lot of waves with his Before Church and State, which, if I'm not mistaken, is his dissertation. But the new book he has, The Two Cities, A History of Christian Politics. I don't know if there could really be a book more in the wheelhouse in our show, so that's what we're going to talk about today, so stick around for that. If you want to make sure to see what's going on with Iowa Catholic Radio, it's easy to do. Go to iowacatholicradio.com where you can listen live and donate. See what's going on. You can follow us at Facebook, friend us at Iowa Catholic Radio, on Twitter at IA Catholic Radio to follow our tweets. And then if you download the Iowa Catholic Radio app, anywhere that you have data, you can listen live, donate, listen to pre-recorded things, all such good jazziness there. This is The Uncommon Good, and we'll be back right after this.
musicians, liturgists, pastors, and guests. Join the Des Moines Diocese chapter of the National Association of Pastoral Musicians at a Mass and reception Sunday, November 21st, 3 p.m. at St. Ambrose Cathedral. Come, make a joyful noise during the Mass, which will include a blessing of musicians. Following Mass, enjoy light refreshments and networking opportunities at the Pastoral Center. Contact Sarah Graff for more information. Des Moines IA at mpm.org. Des Moines IA at mpm.org. Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by Five Sons Naturescapes. Five Sons Naturescapes is a Catholic veteran-owned family company providing premium outdoor landscaping. Learn more about Five Sons Naturescapes at fivesonsnaturescapes.com. fivesonsnaturescapes.com.
The Diocese of Des Moines is now offering the option of receiving the Catholic Mirror digitally. If you would like to receive your copy of the Catholic Mirror in a digital format via email instead of your regular copy that comes in your mailbox, visit dmdiocese.org/Catholic-mirror. That's dmdiocese.org/Catholic-mirror. You'll see the digital version heading at the top and a hyperlink on Sign Up Here. Visit dmdiocese.org/Catholic-mirror. That's dmdiocese.org/Catholic-mirror.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Farm Bureau agent Cindy Schulte. Life insurance can help protect your family. It's your future. Let's protect it. CindySchulte.com. Cindy's phone number is 515-226-2111. Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Christ is the Answer with Father John Ricardo is provided by Confluence Brewing Company, a local brewery featuring seasonal and limited release beers located off the bike trail south of Grays Lake and online at confluencebrewery.com. Confluence Brewing Company has growlers to go, apparel, and other gifts for family and friends. Confluence Brewing Company is available for curbside service and would like to thank you for your support. Thank you, Confluence Brewing Company, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Back with the Uncommon Good, Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr joining you this Wednesday. Thank you for listening to the show, and thank you for listening and supporting Iowa Catholic Radio. You can go do that online, iowacatholicradio.com, or call and text 515-223-1150 to donate. Thank you for your prayers, your support through volunteering, and also your material support. Today on the show, we have Andrew Willard Jones, the author of two books, one Before Church and State, the other, The Two Cities, A History of Christian Politics. So, you know, we're hoping in 20 minutes to have an entire rundown of the history of Christian politics. No, I'm kidding. But to throw it over, because you actually know Andrew, I'll let you introduce him and get us started.
Yeah, Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, obviously, with the title of the book, St. Augustine's City of God is in the background. And this language of two cities, some of our listeners might be unfamiliar with how Augustine used those terms. Could you talk about how what he does in that work sort of informs the way you wrote this history?
Yeah, sure. So you're right. The two cities is sort of a fundamental way of understanding the course of human history that St. Augustine introduces to us. And basically the idea is that all of human history is really about salvation. Okay, which seems sort of obvious as Christians when we say it, but we don't often actually think about history that way, right? So St. Augustine's framework is that we are either moving towards heaven, towards communion with God, or we're moving away from him. And that we do this not only as individuals, but also as groupings, as social beings. So our political, economic, cultural, religious structures are either moving up or moving down, moving towards God or away from him. And so those are the two cities. The city of man, or the earthly city, is moving away. The city of God is moving towards him. And so the whole sort of drama of human history is the city of God's movement toward God and attempt to convert the city of man into itself. And then the city of man sort of tugging and dragging the city of God, right? And trying to pull it down. And that becomes the plot of history.
Well, and, you know, I to go further into that, you know, I was making the joke that, you know, you're going to cover the whole history of something, but it's interesting that we get a lot of histories of the churches, but the history of church politics, I guess, before we launch into any specific thing, why is it necessary then to get specific about the history of the church's politics? Why, as it were, is that something distinct from the history of the church in general?
Yeah, well, I think actually the thrust of the work is that the political aspect of humanity is an essential aspect of the ecclesial, so of the church. So, and that's what I'm trying to do is a correction, I think, of a modern way of writing church history, where the church is just sort of one player within the course of human history. So you have countries and corporations and races and peoples and they're doing all this sorts of stuff, and then one of the players in that mix is the church, right? That's sort of a typical way in which we write church history. But what I'm trying to argue is that, no, actually the church is what's going on. Like, what is going on in human history is our fall and then our redemption, and nothing else is going on. So the point is that the political is not operating in a separate sphere. So it's not like we have this political economic world and then the religions of the world operate in a different space, right? But rather those endeavors, those political endeavors, are essentially human, which means they are implicated in both the fall and in the redemption offered to the church, right? So the political structures of humanity are a part of the church, right? I think is the thrust of it. So what I'm trying to do is rewrite the political history of the humanity as if it is an aspect of the ecclesial history of humanity. So now the history of the church includes what we would normally think of as political history.
Yeah, and
now,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was
going to say, so an aspect of that is, how is it that Christianity understands politics? So there's this whole sort of political theology, angle to it.
When you get into the actual details of that history, I think some readers might be surprised by what they find, and I encourage everyone to go out and find the book. It's really accessible, but has a real depth to it. But as we dig into some of the church's past, Andrew, I think some readers might pick it up and say, like, wow, the church at one point was opposed to freedom of speech, or it has these criticisms of religious liberty. One term that I think you sort of redeem in the book that's used kind of pejoratively today is hierarchy. But you say hierarchy is key to social justice. Like, how is that the case?
Yeah, that. So glad you brought that up, because it is a really key principle in Catholic social or political thought. And the reason is this, that power is real. Okay, so some people are different, and those differences are real differences. Some people are faster than others. Some people are better educated than others. Some people are more creative than others, right? Like, we're really different. And those differences are not to be denied or hidden, but rather they're to be acknowledged, because it's in that inequality, right? The differences in real abilities, that each person is able to be ordered towards the whole in a way that is personal, so like vocational, that's personal, and that ordering towards the whole is the way in which the common good is actually achieved. So it requires then hierarchy, because the coordination of very diverse human beings into a harmonious project requires that they're ordered in at different levels of scale. Okay, so there are people, even if there's no sin, even if there's no sort of remedial disciplinary action, decisions have to be made, right, about whether we're going to do A or B. What are we going to be working on? What are we doing? And those decisions at different levels of scale require decision makers, and that there are different people who are qualified in order to make those sorts of decisions, that have the ability to do that. And those are therefore necessary for human ordering, proper ordering. And so the whole modern project of either pretending like there's no differences between human beings, which really just results in masking the real differences and hiding the power that's in play. That's one thing. That's what the popes refer to as sort of the liberal strategy. And then there's the sort of left-wing strategy or socialist one, which is to attempt to actually eliminate differences, right? Attempt to actually equalize or level, which is also an act of injustice. So they're going both, what we think of as the right, the sort of liberal right, and the left. They are they're saying both of those fall prey to this false notion of equality, even though in different ways.
Well, Andrew, on that too, I think this can sound far off. You're like, oh, this is in the past, but I think of multiple organizations that I am currently a part of or have been, where people go, what we want is transparency and communication, so what we should do is have everybody have like an open forum where they can talk. And what always happens, of course, is loudmouths like me dominate these things, and so introverts never get their voice heard. So funny enough, being hierarchical or representative, or, there's many ways to do this, actually makes sure that more people get heard. And it's sort of counterintuitive, because you would think like the less restrictions, the more voices get heard. But actually, the more restrictions allow people who unbounded would just dominate to actually be an ordered part of a whole, and we get to hear more voices. Funny enough, right? Hierarchy makes there be a more plenitude of voices, which gets back to your point, which I think people often forget, is that for the Catholic worldview of the polis, of the city, the idea is that the strong have an obligation to the weak. And when they try to flatten these relationships, it is almost always an attempt for the strong to get out of their obligation to the weak. And I think that people, that to me is like sort of central to this drama of the two cities, is a lot of times what seems like, equality is, again, one more time, the strong trying to get out of their obligation to the weak. That's right, yeah. So if you think of the city of God as being sort of open upward to the divine, and so the power of God is descending down and being mediated through the hierarchy of that city, right? So it's like a hierarchy of gift or of service, right, that is descending down. So those who have more power they have that power in order to serve the weak, in order to lift the weak up, right, and elevate them. That's what that power is for. Now, the city of man is inverted, so it's sort of closed downwards, right, instead of being open upwards. And so what it's trying to do is extract as much power or wealth from what's weaker, right? To dominate it and to extract from it. And like you said, any sort of myth of equality, and we don't mean equality obviously at the level of like human dignity. What we're talking about is equal power, right? Any sort of myth of that is always masking the actual power hierarchies that are in place, because you can't actually get rid of those, because that's human nature, right? So if you pretend like everyone's the same, what you're actually doing is hiding the people who have the power. And what the Catholic Church has always said is that we need to not hide that, but recognize it, expose it, hold it to account, right? Because we see who has the authority. Therefore, we can see whether or not they're wielding it properly. Absolutely. All things hidden will be revealed. I'm sorry to cut you off, right. Andrew. We're getting up to the break. When we get back, we'll dive further into this. This is The Uncommon Good. We have Andrew Willard-Jones with us, the author of The Two Cities, The History of Christian Politics, and we'll be back right after this.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by Blessman International. According to a global food security report, more than 820 million people in the world are hungry today. None of us can help them all, but how about one? One child. Blessman International provides 60,000 children in South Africa with a daily hot meal, place of safety, educational experience, and spiritual development. Learn more at blessmaninternational.org. That's blessmaninternational.org. Thank you, Blessman International, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Catholic Charities, where exceptional service is a hallmark in caring for those with essential needs, including food pantry, professional counseling, emergency family shelter, and refugee services. CatholicCharitiesDM.org.
Builder Ken Construction. Not going along with the crowd will help you stand out in the crowd. Builder Ken Construction proudly supports Iowa Catholic Radio. Builder Ken Construction is a commercial general contractor providing pre-construction, estimating, and scheduling services through completion of construction. We can build projects ranging from tenant improvements and historical renovations to high-rise buildings. We build confidence. Learn more about the nearly 40 projects in the Des Moines metro area completed by Builder Ken Construction by visiting www.bdconstruct.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by the Sarah Vocations Ministry, including the St. Sarah Club of Des Moines and the Sarah Club of Council Bluffs. Sarah is an apostolate of the Worldwide Catholic Church dedicated to fostering and supporting priesthood and religious vocations. Sarahs strive to accomplish their mission through prayer, fellowship, and service to the bishop. priests, sisters, and all in religious formation, and in doing so to increase their own holiness. Learn more at joinsera.org, joinserra.org. Thank you, Sarans, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Tuffy Tire and Auto Service, 1685 Southeast Delaware in Ankeny, offering complete car care service from routine dealer recommendation maintenance to complete diagnostics and full-service auto repair. TuffyAnkeny.com.
Back with the Uncommon Good. Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr joining you this Wednesday. Thank you for listening to the show. We have as a guest Andrew Willard Jones, the author of 2 books, Before Church and State. The one we're talking about today, The Two Cities, A History of Christian Politics. Andrew, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Now, we just had Dr. Russell Hittinger out in Des Moines for the Center of Human Flourishing that Mercy's a part of. And wonderful talk, but as we were talking afterward, he makes a point that I've heard him made multiple times. It relates to your idea of the two cities. He makes this point that Augustine holds up as examples of the two cities. One is Cato and the other is Job. And I don't think this point gets enough airplay, because it's actually fascinating if you go read both in the City of God, and he brings it up in another sermon. But this idea, right, is that the City of God is willing to be Job in order to fulfill what God has intended in the political order. And in your book, I think that you have this threaded through that too often the sort of treatments of politics that folks like you are doing gets misrepresentatives like Christians like dreaming about having power that like will never come back. But I actually see in what you're talking about is this Augustinian idea that those who should wield power justly are like Job, that they'll take on the yoke of that burden for the sake of what they think God can accomplish through that service.
Yes. I mean, I think it's essential to understand that when we talk about Christian politics, we're not just talking about secular politics with a different ideology, right? It's not like we just redirect or re-aim the city of man to God, and then we have the city of God, right? Because one of the things that Augustine says is that the end determines the form, right? So what I mean is that the object of the love of the city determines how it is structured and how it's built, right? So if the community is pursuing God, it'll become ordered in that sort of servant relationship, or the willingness of the powerful to suffer for the weak, right? And because of that, it'll actually take on a different external form, right? So the people who pine for sort of absolute monarch confessional states or something are missing something, right? Because I think one of the things they're missing is that those forms of we're already sort of conceding to the world, right? That was already Christianity trading away what made it authentically Christian, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I mean, with another Hittinger point, he talks about like part of what the church is wrestling with today is that in previous times, sometimes like sort of the battle lines were drawn more clearly, but today we're dealing with kind of the soft despotism of the state. And with that temptation that we were just talking about, like your book doesn't so much get into how do we sort of like wield electoral politics to bring about a certain outcome. I sense more there like building an ethos, building a culture. Do you think that's a fair way to phrase it, or how would you expand on that idea?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I think that there's maybe a simple way of looking at it, which would be to look at Rome and ancient Rome and the martyrs and how Rome was converted, right? Because what you're seeing there is tyranny, as we just call it what it is. Tyranny rests ultimately on fear. Right? That's ultimately the way it works, and this is ultimately the way the power of a master over his slave works. And the thing about Christianity, one of the key things about Christianity is through the death and resurrection of Christ, and then the hope and promise of all of our participation in that, we have a way of surpassing fear, right? So overcoming fear and becoming courageous. And what happens when that occurs is that the tyrants lose their power over you. Now, they may still have the power to discipline or to hurt your body, right? But that's not real power. Real power is getting people to do what you want, not being able to beat them up. Right? If anything, having to beat people up is an indication of a weakness, right? And so Christianity frees people from the power that's possible to the city of man, even if they're still subject to the city of man, right? Even if they're still suffering underneath the city of man. And so that freedom can take the form of the cross, but it always is passing through the cross to the resurrection, right? And so what I'm saying is, yes, there's a whole, when Christianity, what Christianity makes possible is freedom from the tyrant, but it doesn't just stay in the sort of stage of martyrdom or sort of perpetual martyrdom, because it's contagious. And as people convert to fearlessness, the whole social order, tyranny becomes impossible. Tyranny falls. This is what happens to the Roman Empire. Tyranny falls because it no longer has a population that either wants the promises, the rewards it can offer, or fears the punishment. And therefore something else has to take tyranny's place. This is the movement into the city of God, and the movement into a different form than of politics.
Andrew, this is, unfortunately, we could talk to you for another hour and a half. This is all great stuff. We have to have you back on the show, but we're butting up at the end here. Can you real quick tell people, if they're interested beyond your book, The Two Cities, and Before Church and State, where can they approach some of your work?
Sure. So a lot of my writing is on newpolity.com. It's a website and also a magazine that I'm involved with. And then those books are both published by Emmaus Road or Emmaus Academic, which you can go to their website and get those. Well,
I encourage people greatly to get your books. Go look at your stuff. Thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll get you back here soon.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks. Thank you. Bye.
So, thank you, Andrew Wheeler-Jones. The Two Cities, A History of Christian Politics. Again, can't recommend that enough. But we're running out of time, so real quick, how can people join the prayer life of Iowa Catholic Radio?
Yeah, please pray the Rosary with us daily at 9:30 in the morning or anytime on the Iowa Catholic Radio app. You can pray the Angelus at 11:55 a.m. and Divine Mercy Chaplet right before 3.
Everything that we're doing in and around the diocese on air and in person, you can look at iowacatholicradio.com to look at that. Thanks for all of your support. 515-223-1150 if you want to call, talk about supporting us more. This is The Uncommon Good. May God grant you a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you next time.
The Uncommon Good with Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr is heard every week on wonderful Catholic stations like this one, and anytime on podcast. Just search for The Uncommon Good.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and The Uncommon Good provided by Mercy College of Health Sciences. Learn more at mchs.edu.